Sorry, I'm a little bit late. It was my fault. Computer problems. I know we all say that, but honestly, like I don't know how to use a computer. I shouldn't be on them. But and I'm super excited today because we're going to be talking with Julianne Lee, who is the founder of the Adored Beast and also opened up the first holistic veterinary hospital in Canada. We all wish she was here in the U.S. so we could see her. And but I want to welcome you, Julianne. Thank you so much. It's super late for her, guys. Like she's really up late for us. So I just want to make sure we don't keep her too much later. But thank you so much, Julianne, for being here.
You're welcome. Nice to see you again, as always.
Yeah, it's gonna. This is gonna be an I love that. It's hard for me when I look over your shoulder. This dog is so beautiful. Who is that?
That was Pepper. And when you were telling me your little story, I was gonna say what breed was the dog, because I got her and her brother as a rescue.
As a
And
rescue.
the first thing she did was try to bite my Mastiff Dane cross. And when she did, all of her teeth went backwards in her mouth. That's how bad and loose they were, because she bit
Yeah.
her, all of her teeth. Anyways, so that was reminding me of that. But anyway, yeah, I had her till she was 18. So
Yeah. So before Julianne and I went live, I was telling her the story. For those of you who follow us and know, I was telling her the story of Albert, because you guys know it's still sitting in my heart because there's so many aspects to Albert. And just to refresh everybody, Albert was, hi, Sherry. Albert was a little rescue that I took on who had to have his teeth pulled. It's a long story we won't get into, but Albert died. And it's hard for me to say that because the guilt still sits with me. So when Julianne says that that's reminded her of her little dog, that's what Pepper, that's what she's talking about. But what we're going to talk about today, actually, we're not going to be talking about dental, but one of the observations that I make daily is that our veterinarians are inundated. Their offices are packed full. The emergency room clinics, if you've had to go to those, are packed full. And when I look back on Albert's story, I realize that a lot of the cases that are being seen at veterinary hospitals aren't what I would consider necessary. And I hate to say that because it always feels like it's necessary, right? When your pet is in discomfort or in pain, we feel like it's necessary. But they're not necessary, and there certainly aren't emergencies. And because of those, and the reason why I wanted to bring Julianne and talk about this is because I not only want to save you guys a trip to the hospital if you don't need to go, or to the vet hospital, but I also want to open up those because I feel like Albert would have gotten better care had the vets not been so, because both the emergency clinic and his the regular vet, not his, because I had just had him, but the regular vet were inundated with care. And I think Julianne's going to be perfect to kind of help guide us to figure out. And so we're going to talk a lot about diarrhea. And I know that's crazy, but I think that, and I don't know how you feel, Julianne, but for me, I feel like the two probable reasons maybe not to have to go to the vet would be diarrhea and like these skin and ear infections. People are just bombarding the vet hospitals with these. Is that kind of what you've experienced when you had the vet hospital?
well, it's sort of why I started Adored Beast Apothecary, right? Was because for skin disease, like
Yeah,
it's skin disease and diarrhea, or skin disease and gut issues, are just go hand in hand.
sure.
They're very similar. There's their focus of their core issues of why it's happening are really similar, actually. So when you say that, it makes, yeah, 100%. I would see
Yeah,
inflammatory bowel disease, just plain diarrhea, all kinds of different diarrhea, and tons. I would say skin disease, GI issues, and cancer.
yeah,
Were the
yeah,
three really really big ones that I saw all the
yeah.
time. And but it's, I think, just to sort of ease everybody's mind that's watching this, is I think they're two symptoms, or the symptomatology that goes along with that pathology, are hard to watch, right? Like for the pet parent, like to sit and watch your dog scratch and cry and whine and moan and stink and bleed, and it's traumatizing and almost torturous to watch on a daily basis if they're really
Sure.
right? But what happens is they go and they're just like everything is just sort of suppressed. So inevitably it's just going to come back. So it's this vicious circle or this merry-go-round that they go on. They go in, they get some relief, then they have like a rebound effect, and then they have to go back in because it comes back, but it even comes back with a vengeance.
Yep.
So like even worse than when they first went in. Um, yeah, it's hardcore. It's really hard to watch your animals suffer. And then with diarrhea, I think the the issue of like letting them out and then letting them back in and then letting them out and then watching them stand there and strain and strain and strain and strain, and you're like, oh my god, like, is he really sick? Is he going to be okay? Is this something that is dangerous, or do I have to worry about this? Like, and then all of a sudden you see a little bit of blood, and where'd the blood come from? Well, the blood came probably because it's depends on where it is, right? Like, is it mixed in the stool? Is it on top? Is it a drop on the top? Is it, did a blood vessel break because of the amount of straining and forcing,
Right.
So it's really helpful for people to learn as much as they can about what's an emergency, what's not an emergency, what can you deal with at home, when would you take them in, how long of time do you have, there's many different reasons that they can have diarrhea. They can have diarrhea because they've gotten into something. They can have diarrhea from stress. They can have diarrhea because they drank from a puddle and possibly have coccidia, or just need to get rid of some of the bacteria that was in the puddle. Like, there's a million. You change the food too quickly. There's a gazillion reasons why they can get diarrhea. So
Yeah.
for me, I would always say to people, just, really pay attention whether your animal's sick or it's not sick. It depends. But if you have like 7 dogs, or you have 5 dogs, or you have 2 dogs and 5 kids, like, it depends on how much time you have that you can actually pay attention to kind of what's been different with your dog or your cat or your horse or your potbelly pig. It doesn't matter. So, I always tell people that they're a diary, and just
Totally.
really quick every single day. Oh, we tried this new supplement, or oh, we tried this new food, or oh, we had new treats, or oh, we tried a new daycare, or oh, we tried a new groomer, or the dog was alone longer today than or my daughter just went to university, or like, subtle changes are important. They're important elements to know whether something is stress induced, food induced, fat induced, bacteria induced, garbage induced. Like, they're important things to know to assess whether you need to go to the vet, like, now,
Yeah.
or you wait for a couple of days, or what can I give them in order to help to alleviate some of their pain. So acute gastritis, so long as they're not vomiting with it, like, if they're eating and they're drinking and they're super awake, and they're not lethargic, and they're acting normal, they just have diarrhea. There's a lot of times that you'll take them to the vet and they'll say, just watch and see. Give them some bland food for a couple of days, and, lay off any treats and things like that. And let's just watch and see. If it gets worse, bring them in. If it doesn't resolve, bring them in. How many times do they get diarrhea? Is this the third bout in 1 month? Is this the second time in a week? Is it, or is this is just a one-off thing and they hardly ever get diarrhea? So the assessment part and the understanding of why do they have diarrhea, so that you don't have to rush them to the vet just because they've got soft poo, or they've asked to go out 2 or 3 times during the night, really depends on how they're acting. Like, in general, that's how you would normally assess an animal is, are they lethargic? Are they able to keep food down? Are they drinking? Are they, acting otherwise normal, but maybe a little lethargic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I sometimes though what I see people will do is we see this a lot. Dog has diarrhea, pet parent panics a little bit, especially if you see blood in it, right? That's always the worst case. And then what happens, and I wish people would understand how quickly a dog can respond to how you respond. Just like a kid, right? Kid falls, scratches his knee, he's starting to get up, but you run over there, go, then the kid starts crying. I see that a lot in dogs where the parent starts to feel like, oh, he's sick, and they start coddling the dog and they start going, oh my God, my baby's sick. Well, then the dog starts to act sick. And so then it kind of just it feeds on itself. And they're like, no, he is kind of lethargic today. But then you start going, well, that's because you laid on the bed with him all day, coddling him. Was he actually? So sometimes I tell people, I don't know about you, but like, let's entice him. Do you want to go for a walk? And if he does, then he's not lethargic, right? Like
Mhm.
we get that disconnect, but where people think they are because they want to find that reason to go to the vet to get that reassurance.
Yeah.
And that's but the biggest problem I think you would say, and maybe not, I don't know, but I feel like diarrhea is when you take your dog to the vet for just diarrhea and there's nothing wrong with your dog, it almost always is the beginning of a really bad because of what they're going to start giving your dog, right? Some metronidazole. And that's why it's important not to rush to the vet. But
Yeah.
can you tell us a little bit, because when you said, hopefully they send you home and say, let's watch them for a few days.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully, but most, at least not the ones I'm experiencing, most vets are not doing that because they feel the need to give you something. So you go home with all this stuff.
Yeah, it's a bit of an old, like the older, the older school vets would do that
Yeah,
probably a lot more than they're doing now.
yeah,
Uh, so I think it's like how much blood. That's
yeah,
another big one, right? Is there a
yeah,
couple
yeah,
drops? Is there half a cup? Is
yeah,
the is it mixed in? Is it explosive diarrhea where it's just shooting out and it's like water? There's different levels of immediacy, right? Or just watching and waiting and see. If your dog's got explosive, profuse, watery, squirting out diarrhea, he's going to get dehydrated pretty quickly. So dehydration is one of the number one concerns with ongoing diarrhea or diarrhea of that, like they drink water and 5 minutes later
yeah.
it's
It's right on
shooting
them.
bomb, right? So, it doesn't take very long for them to get dehydrated. So, like I said, it depends. If they just have like pudding diarrhea or there's lumps in it or it's like gelatinous and there's a couple drops of blood because they've been going out and straining and straining and straining, but they're acting pretty normal, like they're eating their dinner or they're drinking their water, they're keeping it down. It's something that you can really work with at home, right? Like for me, I never let anything resolve on its own, personally,
Yeah,
and it's probably because I have tools that I can derail it quite quickly, so it doesn't turn into anything. So I think the watch and wait and see is a really good idea, but it needs to be a watch and wait and see with supportive care, right? So, giving them things that will help to soothe their gut lining like right away. Because that's sometimes it doesn't resolve, right? And then you do have to go in and if you've waited too long, then it's worse, then there's more complications and then they do have to go on drugs and things like that. But if you're in a position where you can, give them bone broth and slippery elm and marshmallow root and probiotics and DGL and things like that. And my favorite for acutes is homeopathy. So the top remedies for diarrhea is arsenicum, nux vomica, phosphorus, and China. They're four real basic remedies that people can have on hand. They're so not expensive. They're easy to give. They're nothing scary. You don't have to be scared to give them. And they are lifesavers when it comes to vomiting and diarrhea and sort of acutes like that. Even acute, injuries, where they're limping. Like I think I see that more than it. I think I saw that a lot too. That a dog starts to limp and they're rushing them off to the vet right away. Oh, they've torn their cruciate ligament or they've done this or they've done that. Like that's what's going on in your head. I mean, obviously, if you think your dog's broken its leg or it's like a massive injury,
Right.
you would take them in. But there's a lot that you can do. Like we don't go to the doctors just because we hurt our legs. Like if I went to the doctor every time I got stepped on by a horse or smashed up against a wall by a horse or whatever, I would be going to the doctors every second day.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I'm coming up from the barn limping probably every couple of days, and I take remedies, I ice it, and my body just heals.
Yep.
But if I went on NSAIDs every single time, eventually my body's not even going to know how to heal.
Yeah.
So it's a similar thing, right? The the body has to educate itself on how to heal. And if you intervene every single time something goes wrong, especially with diarrhea, because the majority of intervention clinically from a vet hospital is antibiotics, right? So then you're giving antibiotics and then you're starting that whole big vicious circle of destroying the microbiome in the gut, and then all kinds of secondary diseases and pathologies happen from that, like skin disease, leaky gut syndrome, autoimmune diseases.
That's the fear. I have a client right now who her dog's having some anal gland issues and she keeps chewing and biting and she's learning so much. She's like, I don't want to go to the vet because they're just gonna make me do this. They're gonna want me to do this stuff. And I said, well, they can't make you do it. They can't make you do anything. But she's right. She feels like bad. And so she's trying to do it at home. We increase the fiber and we're trying to do some things to help this dog on her own. But she knows, she's like, if I go to the vet, her dog is suffering from seizures. So she's really worried about giving her anything because she doesn't want to, she's got her in a good space right now. So
Mhm.
like if I go there for this anal gland issue and the itching, she's afraid they'll just give her, Apoquel, and she's like, I don't want to go down it. But that's the thing is what happens when you start that vicious cycle. The diarrhea now leads to, like you're saying, now it's got skin problems because we gave it this and that and the other thing.
Yeah.
It's just so hard to try to help. But you make such a good point, and I so agree with this. Would you go yourself? Would you
Yeah.
go? Would you go, or would you bring your child to the doctor for this? Is this something you would do?
Probably look it up and you'd probably give them Pedialytes and electrolytes, and you
Right.
would probably Google it before you would run your child to the hospital or the emergency clinic because it had diarrhea.
Yeah.
You
Is
know,
there is there a time? I mean, is there a time when diarrhea is good?
mm, it depends. If they've eaten something that the body understands it has to get rid of, then
Right.
yes, then
Yeah.
yes, yeah,
Yeah, that's what I think sometimes. I'm like, well, you got to get it out. Like, you don't want it just sitting in there. So sometimes I think if maybe we can all think of the diarrhea as not always a bad thing. Obviously, it's the dehydration we're worried about. So,
it's dehydration. And why do they have it?
yeah,
Because dogs typically see. My whole philosophy is why. I'm
why?
always asking the questions why. I'm never like, okay, it's got diarrhea, let's move on. Or it had diarrhea for one day, let's move on. Like I'm very much about why.
Why?
Why did this healthy dog all of a sudden have a bout of diarrhea?
Yeah.
What's going on? So, and even if it did have a bout of diarrhea, I would probably be like, for the next week, paying attention to its diet, right? Giving it more bone broth, increasing its fiber, increasing the different kinds of probiotics, making sure that it's got the right prebiotics. Like I wouldn't just ignore it, because if it's got diarrhea, then the chances are whatever it was trying to get rid of, part of the microbiome was affected.
Right.
This is not normal per se, right? Like it's not normal. Something is happening in the GI tract to create that inflammatory response, or reject something.
Right.
So if that's the case, it's like, okay, then let's just replenish it. You know, like
Sure.
if you had diarrhea or I had a GI upset, I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm just not going to do anything and pretend it didn't happen, right? I'd be like, okay, I'm going to increase my hydration, probably going to pay attention a little bit of what I'm eating. I'm going to 100% give myself some probiotics that I think are appropriate for how I was feeling. You know, I'm not just going to ignore it. To me, a symptom, and this is what I think people don't understand. When a body, doesn't matter whether it's an animal or a dog or a person or whatever, when a body has a symptom, that symptom is a language that something's up.
Right.
So when we look at homeopathy, when we look at treating something naturally, that natural approach in hopes is going to the core issue of why those symptoms happened. Whereas conventionally, they suppress the symptoms, right? They don't treat the symptoms. They say they treat it. They don't treat the symptoms. They suppress the symptoms. And, you know, I had a licensed veterinary hospital. A lot of very close friends of mine are veterinarians. So this is not in any way, this is human medicine too. It's just medicine. It's just conventional medicine in general. We don't get to the core issue. We suppress the symptoms. And then what happens is they either, like I said, get suppressed and then they rebound so that they get worse, or they move to somewhere else. You know, like the drug, working with symptoms through drugs, we don't actually treat the symptoms. We suppress the symptoms. We get rid of the symptoms, but we don't get rid of the reason why the symptoms were there.
Yeah.
So I think that that's an important thing. And I think that, you know, diarrhea is okay. Something's up. It's a clear symptom. Something's up.
Yeah.
You know, look in your little note. Oh, wow, that's interesting. Because every time I take him to this dog park, 2 days later, he gets diarrhea. Well, okay. So then take him to the dog park if that's the only dog park to go to, but let's increase his gut flora so that whatever bacteria, whatever he's drinking or whatever he's getting into has more defense mechanisms towards that bacteria.
Yeah.
Don't send them to the vets every single time they're, you know, going to the dog park, or 2 days after you go to the dog
Right.
park,
Right.
or stick them on a whole bunch of drugs because now the vet's thinking that because you haven't put two and two together. So then your vet's thinking, oh, is this the beginning stage of IBD? Do we need to put them on something a little more hardcore? Because clearly this flagell's not working, right? Or clearly this antibiotic's not working. And nobody puts two and two together. It's coming from the dog park, right? It's happening when we go to the dog park. Or it's stress diarrhea because it's every time I have to leave them at the boarding kennel, or you know what I mean? Like it's the more information of why it's happening, the better you have the tools to actually stopping it rather than continuing to suppress it, or the dog getting diarrhea every week, which isn't good for the mucosal lining of the gut, right?
Right.
And it's
Oh, yeah.
eventually going to cause gut trauma, right?
Right.
Which leads to something else. So I think, you know, pay attention. What is it from? And then there's nothing like there's nothing. I get what you say about coddling, right? So instead of coddling happens when you feel defenseless, usually. I don't
Yeah.
know what to do. Oh my God, poor baby. You look like you feel crappy. You're having to go out, you poor thing. I get it. Compared to empowered.
Yeah.
Oh, Okay, you've got some diarrhea. Come on, let's go into the kitchen and make you some bone broth. And let's add some slippery elm or some gut soothe or some, like let's add some stuff and let's start getting rid of this stuff. Let's start working with it. Let's start making you feel better.
That's such a good point, because there's two ways to be empowered, right? One is to do exactly what you're saying, start jumping into action. And
Yeah.
then the other part of empowerment, I think, too, is the figuring out, really focus on why. Because once you know the why, that's not as scary,
Yeah.
right? Like, because I will tell you from a vet tech standpoint, one of our busiest days at the vet hospital was July 5th. You know why?
Fireworks.
Because July 4th stressed everybody out. And then on July 5th, we were just July 5th and 6th, we were just bombarded with dogs with diarrhea.
Yeah.
Some dogs were actually injuring themselves through other things, but
Oh
diarrhea
yeah.
was just rampant on those times. But
Yeah.
knowing, that's such a good thing to say, empowering yourself both with knowing what the cause could be.
Yeah.
And usually, don't you think it's usually within, if you go, like, I know my dog had diarrhea one time really bad, and I forgot. But at 1 o'clock in the morning, there was a raccoon in my backyard, and I totally forgot about it. He freaked out. The next morning, had diarrhea, but wouldn't go in the backyard. So he had it in my bedroom, of course, because he would not go outside. And I couldn't figure, I'm like, what is your problem? You go in that backyard all the time. I'm so stupid. It took me a day and a half to remember the raccoon at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
So, and then I was like, oh, what a wuss my dog is. Like, it freaked him out enough that he caused diarrhea. But God, what a good point. Empower yourself with knowing what could be the cause, and
Yeah.
how you going into the kitchen. Yeah, let me give you some bone broth. Wow, that's going to make you feel so much better. That's a good point.
Because I think, am I freezing?
A little bit, but not much. I mean, we can still hear you.
Okay. I don't know why all day my internet's been really weird. Um, so I think like I'm a real wuss with my animals, right? Like I'm really like they're my babies and when they get sick, my heart hurts and the whole nine yards. So I feel like when I give people that advice, it's because it works for me.
Yeah.
If I feel like I can alleviate, help to alleviate their suffering or help to alleviate um their reason for whatever's happening with them, whether they're having diarrhea, whether they have an ear infection, whatever. If I can help to alleviate their stress or their pain, that makes me feel better. And then the whole energy changes, right?
Right.
You go from fear to empowerment, right? Fear to it's going to be okay, or fear to let's do this, and if it doesn't resolve, then we'll take you to the vet. Like it's a different feeling altogether.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there is, and like I said, there's a ton of things you can do. We have I think we have an article. We just did an article on diarrhea, I think. Or did we? No, we didn't. I don't remember. Um, but it's there's I have a thing on my website called Are You Vet Ready?
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's a really big, well, it's a pretty uh stocky. uh I think there's four 1 or 2 hour segments, and it's on YouTube. And I would really recommend, it's free, and I would really recommend people watch it because we're going into a time where we can't just get in the car and go to the vet.
Yeah.
That
No.
that that's gone now,
Yeah.
right? We don't have that luxury. And maybe is it a luxury, or is it maybe something that we all need to do, so that we aren't going down that merry-go-round, so
Yeah.
that we only are taking our animals to the vets because it's an emergency,
Yeah.
and we're
You
dealing
have
with
to,
it at home.
yeah. I'm so thankful, with all the people like Julianne and all the vets and everybody with the information that you're helping people with, because like I said in the beginning of this, I really believe that Albert kind of got slighted a little bit. He wasn't able to get the care that he needed to get. He just wasn't. And
No.
it's not to blame anybody, but I think that he would still, I don't want to say that he would still be here, but I think he deserved so much better. And as much as I know, I couldn't get him in, I needed some x-rays and that I couldn't provide. And they were just inundated with so much. And it's just, and the sad part too, right? We know that a lot of veterinarians are leaving the field, and
Technicians.
yeah, we're so many people are leaving the field, and there's just such this overwhelming that we have to start empowering ourselves and figuring out how to do some of this stuff. And
Yep.
so I know you mentioned a few things about diarrhea. I just want to really quickly tell everyone that as a person who runs a boarding facility, I see a lot of dogs and I see a lot of diarrhea. Like a lot. Because when dogs are nervous, they get little colitis and they get diarrhea. And I just want to point out that none of my dogs with a little bit of bloody diarrhea have ever been sick. Like I've never, so I just think I don't want to say it's rare that it could be, because it could be a problem, but I just want people to kind of know that, oh, Carrie sees this all the time and never are they dying of cancer. Because I think that's the problem, right? We see it, we see blood, and we go, there's so many things in between dying
Go
of
to your
cancer,
head.
right?
Yeah.
So just know there's a lot of reasons for diarrhea. They're not all dying and cancer and that kind of thing. So, but what are your, I know you mentioned a couple things, a little couple of things for diarrhea, but what are some of your favorite? I know I love healthy gut. That's one that I almost always will recommend, but what are some other things that you recommend? I know you mentioned bone broth.
I think if it's really diarrhea from a product perspective is gut soothe. I mean, I have some veterinarians that carry it in their clinic and they say it's like diarrhea band-aid in a bottle. It's like it helps them because it also helps with the discomfort.
Yeah.
So it helps. It's called gut
That's
soothe,
it.
right? So it really does help. So my favorite go-to is to get some bone broth if they're used to it. If they're not really used to it, then you have to be careful. Or raw goat's milk, something that their bodies are already adapted to, and mix the gut soothe or the goat's milk in that. I also have another product called Your Go-To,
Oh,
and
I love that. Yeah.
it is so phenomenal to try and help derail that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I just tell people get gut soothe, some goat's milk, gut soothe, some bone broth, give them go to like right away, immediately, and then give them some of the gut soothe and the bone broth, and you can continue to give the go to every hour, even for 3 doses, right?
It's interesting because I use Your Go-To for grooming. I'd never even considered using it for, it never even dawned on me to use it for
Oh,
diarrhea.
yeah, that's why I put it out. I put it out for the first stages of any kind of disease.
Oh, I,
So if all of a sudden your dog starts itching and its ears red and painful, just start giving it and give it every half an hour for 3 or 4 doses, and it helps to derail inflammation and pain.
oh, wow.
So it can you're not going to hurt them,
Yeah.
right? So if they're dealing with anything, it's aconite and arnica, right? So aconite deals with the immediacy of like fevers and shock and trauma and like something that's come on quickly, and
Hmm.
it deals with inflammation and pain. So it's a really that's why it's called Your Go-To, because you can use it for anything.
Yeah.
Like if something happens, if they're scared, you go for it. If they've got diarrhea, you go for it. If they've got all of a sudden, bang, there's they've got a red and itchy ear, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're hearing them banging on the bottom of your bed, you can give it to them, right? Like you don't have to put it in food, you just put it in their mouth.
Yeah.
So, that is my from a perspective of what can people do at home, other than if they take the course, or if they just look on the series on YouTube, I explain in detail how to start remedies, what remedies to buy. And those remedies are easy to find. You just go to a health food store or go to homeopathy. I think it's called, um, I forget. There's a lot of online stores that you can purchase homeopathic medicine from. And they're, anywhere from $8 to $12 for a bottle of it that lasts you months and months and months and months and months, right? It's really, really inexpensive. And there's no contraindication. That's the other thing that people need to understand with your go-to or with remedies that I suggest in the on that little course. You can, if your dog's on drugs, it's fine. Like the lady that's got her dog that's epileptic, she can be giving, she could be giving remedies and not worry about it.
Yeah.
That's the great thing about it, right? There is no contraindication of giving them.
That is the greatest thing about it, because that's the fear. People are, oh, what if I give him this and this will happen? Or what if I give him this? I've had this happen before where veterinarians will tell somebody who's taking like heart medication and they want to try homeopathy, and the vets will say, no, you can't give them anything else with it. But there's no reaction,
No,
right?
that's inaccurate when it comes to homeopathy. You have to be careful with herbs. You
Yeah.
know, certain herbs that interact negatively with certain drugs, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but things like probiotics, you don't have to worry about, and things like and the modality of homeopathy, you don't have to worry about it. I worked with so many oncologists and veterinary universities for second opinions with dogs with cancer or animals with cancer, that we were, they were very, very open to using homeopathy because people wanted to try another modality of medicine. And the oncologists were really scared to um, do herbs because of the contraindication. So I work very, really closely with a lot of oncologists from vet universities with homeopathy. So they don't have to be scared of that. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's just getting with I had I think getting to the right person who understands homeopathy is the hardest part,
Mhm.
because I think some people are dabbling in it a little bit and
Yeah.
not totally understanding and giving. I've had a couple clients, and that's really unfortunate, because then it scares people when it's wrong or it's not working and it didn't have any effect, and then people just think, oh, it just doesn't work, because it's already a battle to get people to understand homeopathy. And I don't touch it for that reason, because I don't know enough about it, and I know that you really do need to know enough. Had I worked with people who were and saw more of it, but I just don't know enough about it. So I
Mhm.
love talking to people who completely understand it, but I'm afraid of people who are like, oh, I tried homeopathy on my dog once and it worked, so now I'm an expert. It scares
Oh, no, no. I mean, just go buy, do that. Do Under a Ring has a really great course that you can actually take. There's lots of good books like Richard Pitcairn's book or Don Hamilton's book about homeopathy. You
yeah.
just from people that are professionals, right? And understand it that way. I just was looking at the chat about pancreatitis because that is something that
This
can cause
yeah,
diarrhea. Sure.
yeah, Mango. This is a dog I've been trying to help with. She's struggling. There's a lot. Lori, we'd have to give Julianne a lot of background on it. And I'd have to find out some more information. We can maybe, if you want to, certainly if you want to put it in, maybe Julianne can answer a little bit. But she's just telling me right now about the pancreatitis. So, recommended sweet potato.
Recommend that she goes and does that. Just take a look at the YouTube videos that I have out because I have a section on pancreatitis.
Did Lori, oh, she found it. Yeah, Lori's
Yeah.
posting, so she's got them on there. So I would definitely, knowing that now we've got the pancreatitis, go on Julianne's Adored Beast YouTube channel and look up what she has on pancreatitis, see if we can get some more information there. Um, I'm sorry to hear papaya was no bueno. I've got really good results from papaya when dogs are having little.
The thing though with pancreatitis is it's rarely just pancreatitis, right? So pancreatitis is caused from so many different things, and often it's a lack of digestive enzymes, right?
Yeah.
The dog doesn't have the proper digestive enzymes, but it can also, I don't ever touch or even think about pancreatitis unless I'm supporting the liver, the kidney, the bladder, and the pancreas. Because if
Can
you're
you
not,
say that again? I think it froze up.
oh, sorry.
Supporting what?
So when you're dealing, like, the best results I've ever had with pancreatitis is when you're supporting all of the supporting organs:
Oh, I see. Yeah.
liver, kidney, gallbladder, and pancreas, and pain. Like again, I mean, I'm not, we weren't even supposed to really be talking about homeopathy, but remedies for pain, because when they have, so pancreatitis can be really painful. So it increases the cortisol level, which then feeds the pancreatitis even more, right? So there is many, many, many different facets, and a lot of the treatments for pancreatitis are just such old school treatments that they're not up on, to me, supporting their pancreas and, like I said, all of their organs, plus pain management with homeopathy, is phenomenal for it, because you break that cortisol cycle, right? Because
Yeah.
the cortisol itself can affect the pancreas and continue to keep it in that chronic state. So, you know, really, really, I would suggest, along with everything else that she's doing and what her veterinarian is saying, um, to look at homeopathy big time for pain management and supportive pancreatic remedies. Because there's remedies specifically for pancreas.
It's so crazy because the pancreatitis is just rampant right now. I
Yeah.
mean, rampant. Back in the day, we hardly ever saw pancreatitis issues. And then some people will argue, oh, we just didn't, it wasn't diagnosed. I'm like, no, dogs weren't coming in with any symptoms of pancreatitis. Now,
Hmm.
now it's just, I used to see it only in like uh, dogs that were eating like a lot of kibble. I would
Yeah.
see it, but now I see it in raw fed dogs, kibble fed dogs, gently cooked dogs, like you name it. It's in every dog. And I'm beginning to wonder, and I'm curious as to what you think about this. What do you think about it being? I'm sure there's lots of factors, but one that I'm starting to wonder is actually overfeeding dogs, like too often or too frequent. Not like so many meals that were just for and treats and meals and treats and chew toys. And do you think that because I'm like, what is going
Well,
on?
I've got articles and stuff about it, like the pancreas, especially with cats, right? Like, cats
Yeah.
are that are free fed. Again, they're not grazers. They're not supposed to graze. Horses are supposed to graze. So I always say we feed horses and cows like dogs, and dogs and cats like horses and cows. The body has to be able to rest, right? The pancreas has to be able to rest. So hydration's a big one. People aren't looking enough at hydration. Is your animal actually hydrating properly? Because that can cause pancreatitis. So there's a million different things, but I think that stress is a big one. Stress is like huge pancreatitis issue,
Hmm.
massive. And stress is a big one. What's in your food? Like glyphosates and chemicals and different, with me, with probiotics, right? Like I stay away from, like, pancreas and sugar. Like, I stay away from things. People are always like fat, fat, fat. To me, it's more sugar, sugar, sugar. So um I stay away from any kind of probiotics that have a fructose based prebiotic in it, because
How would we know that?
you need functional prebiotics.
Okay.
We're really the only company that make prebiotics with. like functional prebiotics, but larch is a functional prebiotic, chlorella is a functional prebiotic, turkey tail is a functional prebiotic. Um, when you're feeding, FOS and a lot of the fructose and inulins and things that are high sugar, and you're feeding them that every day, yes, it's feeding the bacteria, but it's also fructose, right? It's also sugar.
Yeah.
So, I always go, how would a dog get a prebiotic in the wild? How are wolves getting prebiotics in the wild? They're not eating fructose. They're eating fibrous, you know, they're eating the gut of their prey, which
Right.
has fibrous content in it. And, that's why we looked at turkey tail and chlorella and larch, is because those would be prebiotics that the animal consumed that the dog ate. So it's,
And
looking.
larch is from tree bark,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah.
So
So
yeah, I love that. How would they get it? What would they get? How would they get it? I love it.
yeah, so it's fibrous material that they would be getting from, um the gut of their prey. And wolves scavenge, they eat grass, they eat berries, they eat, they're eating things like that. So, someone just was talking about low folate inflammation, small intestine. That's actually what that is. That's true. That is true. But that can be pancreas, and it can also be SIBO, right? So I did a lecture on SIBO, oh my God, like 6 years with Dogs Naturally in Chicago. And the the there's a lot of SIBO going on right now, and SIBO can be misdiagnosed for dogs that have pancreatic enzymatic disease. And it's actually not that. It is actually SIBO, right? So it's small intestinal bacteria overgrowth.
Yeah.
So, and that's coming from too many probiotics, with can come from too many probiotics, right? Like, and not the correct probiotics.
Yeah,
So
I see that a lot. I have dogs now. Even actually a friend of mine, she was taking so many probiotics. She's like, well, I bought this one because it's for women, and I bought this one because it's that, and this one says it helps with that. And she had like 7 different probiotics. And then I see it too with a lot of the dogs at work coming in with
yeah,
just so much supplements coming in.
well,
And
supplements in like, I think we have, well, we're like a massive probiotic company, right? Or gut health company.
right.
But to me, it's about rotation. So when we talk about gut health and we talk about, your dog's gut health, you want to rotate with as many species oriented and diverse strains. You want to make sure that your probiotics are, functional probiotics and not just sugars. Like, I think that it's gone now, but she was talking about, milk sugar or something. I don't remember. But the what you just I wrote an article called "The Overcultured Canine" once, and it's about just, the dog's on everything. It's on fermented foods. It's on a million different probiotics. It's on this. It's on that. Like, it's on yogurt. It's on a gazillion different things, which is okay, so long as you're balancing it correctly with their food, right? Like, I don't think dogs get enough fiber. I think that's a big problem, right? I don't think that they get enough fiber in comparison to what they're eating from a perspective of bacteria. I think the fiber part of it is not paid attention to enough.
The
So
fiber.
it's fiber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. I've seen big results from dogs who we increase their fiber
Yeah.
with a lot of things. And one of the very first things I noticed is they don't have the anal gland problems anymore, which is just toxic to them to have those glands that are supposed to excrete not excreting. They're just
Yeah.
stuck in there, and it's got to be so toxic. I just want to take you back to what Lori had said. She said Prozyme's top ingredient is milk sugar. And then she says, this is confusing. It is very hard to follow all of this, Lori. You're not wrong. I don't know if you can read what she's writing, but that's what she's saying. She says Prozyme's top ingredient is milk sugar.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. She said could be parasites or from food allergies, inflammation, because she's got Mango's got a lot going on.
What could be?
The pancreatitis. Oh wait, the BUN is slightly elevated.
Yeah, 100%. There's a million different reasons why animals get pancreatitis. And that's why I'm saying when we compartmentalize things too much and we focus, we have to be very careful, because holistic medicine is about the whole. It's not about compartmentalizing. You give this for this, and you give this for this, and you do this for this, and you do this for this. That's not really what holistic medicine is about. Holistic medicine is about taking a high level look at what's going on and creating a roadmap to everything that contributes to what's going on, and looking at, like, she's right, pancreatitis can be a lot of different things. It can be SIBO, it can be parasites, it can be stress, it can be the inability it could be the gallbladder that starts even before the pancreas, it could be the liver that's not functioning, even if it's not showing up on the ALT and the AST. Like, there's a lot of, by the time everything is sideways, you have a really, really sick dog.
Yeah.
Like, by the time everything shows up on blood work. So from my perspective is, you start with the gut, even with pancreatitis. Like, the gut is a foundation of health. It's what orchestrates the pancreas to work properly. It's what orchestrates the hormones to tell the rest of the body how to work properly. It orchestrates the brain to tell, it tells the brain what to do. Like, it basically, if you don't have the conductor of the orchestra of the entire body knowing how to create this sort of symphony of everything working together, like a finely tuned machine in the body, you are going to have things fall through the cracks constantly, and you're going to be chasing kittens. Like, it's going to be all over the map constantly, right?
Yeah.
So even if you have to be like, okay, this dog has pancreatitis, we need to deal with his pain, we need to deal with da 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 da. If you're not dealing with an underlying, let's look at the gut, let's look at the microbiome of the gut, and you're not paying attention to that, oftentimes what's going to happen is you might alleviate the symptoms in the moment, but then it's going to come around again, right? Like, we're just not dealing with the issue. So it's I think that gut health it's becoming way too I almost want to say simplistic, but it's kind of like the opposite of simplistic. It's like this bacteria is for this and this bacteria is for that. Like, we are playing, in my opinion, with someone that's been working with gut health for close to 30 years now. We're playing with fire because we're assuming we know everything. And I wrote an article called like the gut is like the galaxy, right? Or like the cosmos. We know a lot, but we know nothing. And the more we try to think that we know about it, and the more that we try to say this is only good for this, and this is only good for that, and this is like we're going to unbalance. We are gonna wind up unbalancing it because it needs so much more to balance it, like food, like de-stressing, like species specific probiotics, like ancestral probiotics, like functional prebiotics, like looking at the postbiotic effect of the exact right combination of probiotics with prebiotics. It's complicated, and and I mean, it's good. I mean, we know that strains now are particularly supportive for Alzheimer's. So yeah, use those strains for people that are susceptible to Alzheimer's or for people that are going down that road, 1,000,000,000%. But don't just do that, right? Because then what's going to happen is the body it's impossible for the body to just be not having one type of low on one type of bacteria, right? The diversity of that
Oh, sure.
is ultimately incredibly important.
Yeah.
So, you know, bringing it back to diarrhea, um, I think that it's sort of like, oh, okay, my dog's got diarrhea. I'm gonna pay attention. What's going on? How often is he getting it? When's it happening? How can I how can I support his microbiome? Because that's what this stuff all over the floor or all over my lawn is telling me to do, right?
Yeah.
It's not there for the sake of being there. It's there because for a reason, but that reason doesn't necessarily mean you have to fly him to the vets and put him on a whole bunch of antibiotics that then turns into a much, much bigger problem. But
That's the whole thing is it is a much bigger problem.
totally.
Hormones are needed for the orchestra to work too. I just want to point out that's a good point. Yeah, there's just so many factors. It's just somebody that had made that comment.
But,
I
but
think.
saying that, think about it. Everybody's spayed and neutered. When you were talking about pancreatitis, like how many dogs are being spayed and neutered at 8 weeks of age now,
Yeah.
or under 6 months?
Yeah, it's awful.
So,
Yeah, awful.
so there's so many different reasons for the increase in pancreatitis. Saying that though, the metabolism, the metabolic function of the hormone metabolic function comes from the bacteria regulating that. So bacteria in the gut actually helps to for animals that don't have sex hormones. It's really important to have the proper hormonal bacteria that does help to increase the serotonin levels and produce a healthier pituitary and and it happens, it all comes from the gut, right?
Sure.
So it's and then there's homeopathy that actually you can give your dog, depending on male or female, you can give your dog homeopathic testy, right? So homeopathic testicles. So canine testicles, it's called canine testy and canine ovary. But
Hmm.
I know you're going like this, but
Hmm.
it's still probably this. And what's so cool about that is the original. It's not like they're taking dogs' testicles and ovaries from spays and neuters anymore. This would have happened probably 100 years ago. It would have been sort of the same, still from the same pharmacopoeia, and they only need one testicle and like one ovary, right? Like that's all they need to make the original medicated potency.
Oh
So
yeah, I see what you're saying. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, at my clinic, I used it all the time, all the time. There
Really?
probably wasn't I there wasn't a dog or a cat that came to my clinic that had if it was spayed or neutered, it was on that protocol.
That's amazing. And it makes so much sense. Like I know not everybody knows who Bob Barker is, but Bob Barker used to tell us to spay and neuter our dogs after every single episode of The Price is Right, and we all did it, and without thinking about it. And I'm like, God, and it's not his fault, but I hear his spay and neuter. I don't know if any of you guys saw that, but I still hear his voice saying that. And now I think back on it, what were we thinking? Like we really didn't realize. I know what we were trying to do is stop the overpopulation, which obviously as a person who does fostering, I have 3 baby kitties. So when you said it's like chasing kitties, I giggled because I was like, oh yeah, I was doing that last night. But I still think we can do both. Like we don't have to take our pets and just spay and neuter them. It's such, and they just got younger and younger. They kept going younger and younger.
That's the big deal now, right? Is that they're being spayed and neutered before they're even remotely um, when their growth hormones aren't even finished.
Yeah.
You know,
It
like
used to be when I was a tech, it was 6 months, nothing before 6 months. And then when I got out of the vet world, I started hearing dogs were getting it done at 3 months and like
eight
just
weeks.
2 months. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening?
Yeah.
And I hope that that's starting to shift back a little bit. Hopefully.
Um,
You never know.
I don't know if
Never
it
know.
is. I really don't know.
So there's a question from Sherry. She says, what is the best way to increase fiber for raw fed dogs other than psyllium or inulin?
Vegetables.
Veggies. Yeah. 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 I get my dogs get quite a bit of veggies to try to get their fibers up and stuff. So Lori points out, she's the one that with Mango, we were talking about the pancreatitis, just so you know. She says the stool is a mess. Dog is skipping a day or two of bowel movements. Vet claims that is fine because dog is absorbing the food. And then she says before tell me what you mean by before, but it says before stool was hard and formed 2 times a day most of the time. I thought that was better. So do you think that 2 times a day formed stool is better than skipping a day or two of a bowel movement?
Well, it depends. It really depends. I would think that 2 times per day would be, in my opinion, better.
Yeah.
Right. But you know, the vet's also following this dog and everything that's going on when it comes to like, is it absorbing its food, and before it wasn't, if it was getting diarrhea. Right. So maybe she's meaning skipping a day but eating is better than chronic diarrhea. Like maybe that's what she's talking about.
Yeah,
I don't
she says before, meaning before I started to change the diet. So before she changed the diet, dog was going to the bathroom 2 times a day.
even pancreatitis.
I don't know. See, there's so much going on with Mango that and Lori, you have to remind me. I'm pretty sure Lori had told me Mango is kind of a nervous dog. So
Yeah.
and that's the whole chicken before the egg, right? Is he nervous because his gut bacteria is off, or is his gut bacteria off and that's what, you know what I mean? Like which one is which?
Mhm.
So that's always the hard part, I think, too,
Well,
is figuring out which came first.
it's all part and parcel. But the other thing I just wanted to say about the psyllium and inulin, I wouldn't give my dog inulin.
No. Yeah, I never recommend it. What do you I mean, what do you think the problem with it is? A lot of people give it.
I know they do. I just don't think it's a functional. I don't give my animals anything unless it's functional. I'm a functional freak with with my own body. Like if before I stick something in my mouth, or before I give something to my animals, or before I make a formula, you
Yeah.
know, for ABA, it's like, what is this going to do functionally? How is it synergistically going to process with the rest of it? Is this something they would get in nature? And if I have to say I don't know or no, I would be like, okay, then I'm finding something else to replace that.
That's
I'm
why
not.
I love that's see, guys, this is why when I'm recommending products, I'm looking for people like Julianne Lee who think at a different level, like such a deeper level of understanding. I love that you're using like tree barks and things that we know they would get.
Well,
They would
the last two probiotics that I just launched, it was a 4-year study for functional prebiotics that I did. Right.
Mhm.
So
Right.
um it's just a long time coming, because as a probiotic company, our hands were tied about using prebiotics. I didn't want to use inulin. I didn't want to use FOS. I didn't want to use a lot of the stuff that is out there for as a prebiotic. I wouldn't use it. So it's like, okay, well, if I'm not going to use it, then I need to do the studies and the research to find out what can I use that would be a functional prebiotic. So we use Corella now, and Corella has all of these amazing medicinal properties.
What
Along,
is that? I don't even know.
it's like
What
an
is
algae. It's a type of an algae.
Oh, it is. It's an algae. Oh, cool.
Algae, yeah. And
Yeah.
then and now turkey tail. We've developed a prebiotic made from turkey tail.
Yeah.
So we
Turkey
all
tail mushrooms. I know that one.
yeah, we all know what that does,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So why would we use something that's just sugar when we can produce something that's got all of these incredible medicinal values that an animal would be eating in the wild,
That's
right? Like deer. I mean, I have a medicinal mushroom forest, right? So I know what eats our turkey tail. Squirrels, deers, lots of things eat our turkey tail that then would be eaten by a dog or a wolf
right.
or a
A wolf.
coyote,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So it just uh it's just a for me, it's the natural way to go. I'm not saying that everybody else is doing it wrong. I'm just saying from my perspective, I don't use or give anything that doesn't give value to everything else that I'm giving, or
Yeah.
give value, a lot of value, not just, oh, it's known to do blah blah, like this little thing. Like it's gotta have a punch, and it's gotta be synergistic with what everything else that I'm doing.
Yeah, I think we should do that. I tell people that all the time with our dogs. It's hard as people, right? Because we go to dinner with friends and things are put in our face all the time that maybe we shouldn't be eating. But with our animals, they don't like, why not make their treat be something that's functional, that's healthy? Why does there why everything that goes in our pets' mouths, especially because their life is so much shorter than ours, should always have some sort of a nutritional benefit to them. I
Yeah.
just I agree. I don't like, sometimes people say to me, "Oh, well, it's okay if I give him a little bit of this greenie. It's just the greenie." And I'm like, "Why? When we can give him something that serves a purpose both for both of you." Because sometimes our treats, we all admit this, sometimes giving our animals a treat is more about us than it is about them, because it makes us feel good. But why not give them something that is really, and that's the hard part, right? Though, is though people understanding what is good, because that's the other trick, right?
Yeah, but it's not difficult to figure out what's good, I don't think. Like it's if you really just, dig into the history of a dog, you
Yeah.
know, what bits do they eat from a whole prey? Just look at whole prey nutrition and look at, functionally what they would be getting. Because, when I did when I produced the wolf strain, or when I launched the wolf, um, there was a lot to that, right? Like from a perspective that I really believe in fingerprint of probiotics. So probiotics have a fingerprint of what they do. That's why we number them, and that's why when we do research on them, we know what strains and what they're doing and what they can do and can't do and things like that. So from my perspective, it was like I really wanted to find probiotics um, that would inoculate the gut with with something that was virgin. Let's use it that way. Like something that, it comes from wolf feces, wild wolf feces.
Yes.
So it hasn't had antibiotics. It hasn't had, flea control. It hasn't had all of that. And what really blows me away more than anything, when I started like going down this research road with this, is that wolves can be up to 150, 190 pounds, and the average wolf life expectancy is 15. And they're not being coddled, and no one's stitching their wounds, and nobody's giving them antibiotics, and they're surviving and thriving. There's large wolves having babies at 10 years of age, right? They have stress. They have a lot of stress from the
Sure.
perspective of how they're treated, and losing their communities and things like that. But I wanted to introduce something that would, like I said, would inoculate the gut with a bacteria that was their ancestor, right?
I love it. Yeah.
So, and it's just it's the gut to me is very, like, I'm going down a very different road than the majority of people that are doing microbiology and gut health.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's because I've been down the road. Um, I've already been with that sort of basic things, and I still see animals getting sick, and
Yeah.
I still the animals. Like I've been doing holistic medicine for a really long time with animals, and before that, conventional medicine. And when I hear people talk about, the still the rates of cancer and still the rates of chronic disease in animals, I don't feel like they're getting healthier. We're still not making we're not making a big enough dent.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
for me, it's like, why is that happening? Like,
Yeah.
we're the holistic and supplement industry is massive when it comes to people and animals.
Yeah.
So why is their longevity still not where it's at?
Right.
So for me, it's like I said about 6 years ago, I want to start looking backwards, not forwards. I need to look back and see what we're missing. Like what were they eating? What were they doing? How were they living when they were living? We had German Shepherd Collie dogs on our farm, and those aren't small dogs. And our average dog was living till it was 17. So and that's not that long ago. I'm 64 years old. Like that's when I was 8, 16. We're
Yeah.
talking 50 years ago. That's not very long
Yeah.
for big breed dogs to be not even living till they're 8.
No, I agree. I think we do have to go back, and I do think, just like you, they're not getting better. We have all of this access to all of this stuff, and dogs are taking probiotics. Even our dogs that are eating a species appropriate diet, while I think that they're healthier, they're still having the problems. You're right. There's a missing link somewhere,
Yeah.
and eventually someone's going to come across it. I think you're on the right path. I think a lot of people are there. It's just there's so much. It's like exploring the galaxy, right? Like, oh my God, you're going to discover things, but only if you keep going and keep going. And
Well, I think we choose what we're going to do, right? So we choose, everyone's like, well, species appropriate diet. So we think, we know that animals should be eating, live raw food, like dogs and cats, raw meat and things like that. But we kind of like stop there
yeah,
because it's easy to go, okay, well, I'm just going to go to the pet store and I'm going to buy my dog's raw food. But what about, I'm always talk about like species oriented lifestyle.
yes,
So like, how suppressed are our dogs? How suppressed are our cats? What are our dogs doing now or not doing now? Which
yep,
is the bigger reason that they were allowed to do 50 years ago. One is the majority of them were running around without being leashed up or chained up. The majority of cats were getting outside and hunting. A lot of them weren't spayed and neutered, so they were having sex and fighting and hunting and doing all this crazy stuff, right?
yeah,
They were being dogs,
yeah. They're not
and
anymore.
and they're not anymore.
They're
So
not.
I think we have to be smart and try to um, introduce that way of living back with them, right?
Yeah,
As much as we can. I mean, your dog is your pack. So I'm very much like, okay, my dog's on my couch, my dog's on my bed, my cat's on my thing, watching your thingies move around right now. She thinks that's really quite amazing. And my cats go in, or they're indoor, outdoor. They're so so, but they want to be with us. But are we really being with them,
right.
right? Or are we leaving them most of the time alone during the day when people go to work? Or are they with us, but we're on our computer? We're not even engaging with them.
Right.
you know like, what are we doing to make them feel like dogs? Are we getting on the floor and playing with them? Are we trying to replicate dog behavior with them?
Yeah.
And I believe that if we do, um I honestly believe that if we do, it's really helpful for us. It helps us be less depressed you
Sure.
know
Yeah. I'm gonna because I know how late it is for you, so I don't want to keep you too late. But one question, because it is about your one of your products. So will gut seal help offset a low pred dose in the gut lining? She says we're tapering, but great results so far with colostrum down to 5 milligrams, but I'd still like to prevent any damage that I can.
No. So gut seal is a homeopathic combination remedy that's given with the whole leaky gut protocol, right? So the leaky gut protocol is to try to bring more elasticity and bring more um, um, like plump up the mucosal lining of the gut and help seal the the junctions. And then what the gut seal does is at that same time, then the digestive enzymes helps to break down the food so that the molecules when they're going through the leaky gut isn't as inflammatory, doesn't become as systemically inflammatory in the dog's body or the cat's body. And then gut seal helps it seal at the same time and decrease the thickening or the scarring, right? Because what happens when you're cut? What happens when you have an injury? It heals and then you scar.
Right.
So when you're running out trying to heal your animal's gut, we have to be really conscious that we're also doing things to the gut that when it heals in a really healthy way. And it doesn't become thickened and it doesn't become scarred. Because in that scarred place, I mean, that's what, inflammatory bowel disease really looks like, right? Um, where it's thickened or where it's scarred, there won't be the absorption of food in that area. So gut seal it creates more collagen. It creates this stimulation of the epithelial cells, but it also helps to break down the scar tissue at the same time as healing. So it says, I think that's the same person, right? We are on gut soothe now, kind of between the yeast treatment. Yeah. So um, if you're still on low doses of pred, then continuing to do that as they're tapering off will help to the pred's coming down, but at the same time you are trying to heal the gut. So you're trying to mitigate the effects that the pred had on the gut lining. So that's a really good idea. The other thing is using like fulvic and humic acid because that's really helpful for which is in the phytophthora. That's very helpful to with the permeability of the gut. And the big thing with pred is I would be using liver tonic or liver tonic.
I
That's
I absolutely okay. I'm glad you brought it up because I'm going to give you props right here on your liver tonic. That stuff is they should sell it in stores for people. Like you need to go human. Like it's like
I
this
take
stuff.
it every single day. I take phytosynergy
Well,
liver.
I take it too. I mean, I've been taking the liver tonic myself, but I have watched the lipoma shrink. Like literally with my own eyes, I've watched them. If people are, that's the one thing that I get frustrated with. You're not frustrated with your products, but when I know a product works and then I give it to somebody and they don't use it, that is the hard part. Or they use, well, I gave it to them for a week and I'm like, okay, no, it doesn't. Like teeth right now is a product that I know works absolutely, but if people aren't using it, it takes time, right? You're not going to shrink this giant lipoma. I almost said lipoma on a golden retriever because you gave it 2 times. So it's frustrating, but I just love it. It was just not that I needed reinforcement about these products, but it always, when you see it with your own 2 eyes, because it's hard sometimes to, I don't know how to really, what I'm
We
thinking.
It never ceases to amaze me. We have a like I have a horse rescue, right?
Yeah.
So one of our horses was diagnosed with Cushing's last year, and they wanted me to put him on the drug. And I'm like, I'm not putting him on the drug. I'm going to deal with it the way I deal with it. And then and he had really bad liver enzymes. Like his liver enzyme was insanely high, and he went on my Cushing's protocol and liver tonic 3 times a day,
Yeah.
and we just retested him and it's negative.
Yeah.
So
It,
it's and finally our vet was like, okay, what is your protocol? This is this is amazing. This is like a 25-year-old horse, and he's just basically, his blood work is pristine now.
Right. Right. Yeah,
So
it's just it's the proof is in blood work when you can see it,
yeah.
and then trying to get vets and doctors. I know I got my cholesterol down naturally, and my doctor still can't. I tell the story a lot because they wanted to put me on, their drugs. And I said, oh no, I could do this myself. I just have to change my diet. So I got my cholesterol down by 80 points in 4 weeks, 80 points in 4 weeks. And when my doctor, I almost said vet, when my doctor called me, he said, well, I know you were excited about doing this and proving it because I made them test. And then I said, I'm going to test in 4 weeks. And I wanted to see if I was going in the right direction. And then he calls me and he says, I just want to let you know your cholesterol is still high. That's how he had to tell me because he couldn't say it. He couldn't say. I said, well, what is it? And then he told me. And I said, so we're just going to forget the fact that it went down by 80 points in 4 weeks. Yeah. And that was nutrition 100% and some turmeric and cinnamon is how I did it. And it's trying to get them to, and that was right in front of him. He had the blood work right in front of him and he's still.
It's scary for them, right? It's
sad.
It's sad.
It really is because we can do it with ourselves. We can do it with our animals, but I had to be diligent, just like with your products. You can't just give it once and go, oh, it didn't work. You have to be constantly giving it. I have liver tonic in my refrigerator and I am adamant. I'm like, I'm not going to let that be how I go down or how my, but it's interesting because I had a homeopathic veterinarian come into my store. This was a couple of years ago. And this is a funny story. And she can't treat homeopathically here in the United States yet because she doesn't have her license yet. She's licensed in Costa Rica. So she comes in and she's looking at your products, had never heard of them, and she picks up the liver tonic. And I never met this woman before in my life. It was so random. And she goes, if you get really, really drunk one night and you take this the next day, or you take it before you go to bed, you'll be fine. And I was like, I thought to myself, do I look like someone that goes and gets really, really drunk? Like, hi, my name's Carrie. Like, it was just funny. And then that's how she ended up telling me what she does. And she's all, oh, I'm a homeopathic. And I just thought you might find that interesting. And I'm like, I do, but it was fun. It was really funny. But it makes sense because it's the liver, right? We're detoxing the liver. And
yeah.
So, and I know I've never used it. So for anybody who is going, oh, cool, I was going to have some wine tonight. I didn't use it for that. I don't know. I couldn't vouch for that. I can vouch for the lipomas though, because that I've watched and it's been really cool.
I can vouch for the drinking part. I not personally, but I've had many, 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 many friends.
Really?
For that. And they're like,
oh, that's so funny. That's funny. So great. Now everybody's going to be like flooding the websites to get like, oh, now my dog doesn't have a lipoma, but
I'm going to a party tomorrow night.
Yeah, I'm going to a party tomorrow night. That's awesome.
But you know what? For anything, like your liver, if your liver is not healthy, it's not a good starting point for anything, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what else is kind of cool about it? Side note, it tastes good. Like it just actually, I like the taste of it. I think it has a good flavor to it. What's making it taste like that? You would know, but
the herbs in it, and there's glycerin in it. There's 100% organic glycerin in it. So it's just, it's it's not really bitter.
No, I think I was just wondering is it the herb that makes it taste like that or
a combination of herbs, right?
Yeah. Cause I'm like, oh, it actually, I don't want to drink it all. It's not cheap, but it actually tastes good to me. My dogs don't prefer it though. They always but they wouldn't prefer anything I put in their mouth like that.
It directly in their mouth.
Yeah. They don't like it. They wouldn't like it. So
my animal put it in their food. I just put it in their food.
You do? Oh, maybe I should start doing that. I don't know. Anyway. All right, guys, we have got, I don't know if there was any I think we got two. Okay. I just don't want to keep Julianne is up so late for us. Thank you so much. And Julianne's going to be at the Thriving Pet Expo too, so we're so excited about that. I'm really excited to get you there live and talking with everybody. And it's a 2-day event, so it's going to be really great to
Fun.
have people be able to really get to meet you. And I don't think you guys realize like how lovely and so cool. You are so cool, like such a cool person. Like, and it's a weird thing for me to say, but as I'm listening to you talk, I'm like, she's so cool. Like, just thinking back and talking about wolves and stuff, it's just it's great to always talk to you, Julianne. I just adore you and love talking to you, and
Thank you.
feel really blessed that there's people on this earth that are looking out for our animals and helping us, because we can't all do it all. And so you always say this, we pick what we do, and I think you picked right. I think
Yeah.
you picked right. Yeah. So all right, guys. Thank you all for coming. I don't know if Julianne noticed, but I always notice when they're helping each other out and kind of answering questions for each other. I love that this little community we're building is helping each other and working together. So thank you guys for doing that, and being here and asking great questions that can lead Julianne into all sorts of conversations. Behind the scenes is Lori. She's the one typing everything out for you guys. I hope she got all of your information. She's really good at that. So make sure you go on the YouTube and get a hold of I just want you to remind them again, there was a class you said everyone should take.
It's a 4-part series. It's called Are You Vet Ready?
Yes. Are You Vet Ready, guys? Make sure you get on that. It's really, really going to be great for you, so that we can, just help our dogs live longer. Julianne, any last things you want to say?
I think, I don't know. Maybe because Earth Day's coming up, I would like to say a little bit about that. That just, I love dogs. I mean, I'm surrounded by dogs, cats, horses, the whole 9 yards. But Adored Beast is very much about all animals. So anything that you're purchasing from us is, it's not just sustainable. It's actually, we have someone that's actually hired full time that digs into every single COA, and every single thing that we purchase, we dig into, how, what do they do with their water? How is it actually harvested? What are their environmental practices, things like that. And then, our own mushroom forest, which is all about rewilding clear cut forests. And so I think that's an important piece, that your intention, the intention that goes into your products, has not only your dog's health at at the forefront, but the earth's health at the same time. I think that's a really important thing.
I do
So
too.
read your labels, don't get greenwashed by the word sustainable. And it's a big deal. It's a big deal. I think animals are very energetic. And I think that the cleaner your supplements can be, and the more intentionally supportive of the earth that it can be, it is, that energy is especially with a dog and cats and animals, because they're so receptive to that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. See why I say she's so cool? So cool. All right, everybody. Have a great evening. I'll see you next week. Take care, everybody. Bye,
Bye.
Julie.
Thank you.